Wholly automated purchase, Tim. The Joker's placed money in stocks in the school's vending machines.
The dastardly fiend. We have to stop him, Paul, before he corrupts the students. But first...
What?
I'm going to go buy a Dr. Pepper. You want anything?
To the bat poles!
Welcome to the Bat Poles, where we recommend people give those legs a workout with the Aunt Harriet Pit-O-Fire cycling exercise. This is Tim in Tokyo with my brother Paul in Hanover, New Hampshire.
And his brother Paul is having the hardest time getting that image out of his head anyway, and now you've just renewed it.
Our theme version this time is another one sent in by Mr. Glee from the message board.
Thank you.
Performed by Pylon, an Athens, Georgia band founded in 1979.
Gosh.
And they got together on and off through the years and broke up in 2009 when their guitarist died. This is from a live album of theirs that was released in 2016, but clearly recorded sometime before that if they broke up in 2009.
Right. Did you say Athens or Atlanta?
Athens.
It is Athens, so that's the home of REM and the B-52s as well. It was quite a scene back in those days.
Yeah. So I don't know when it was actually recorded. But yeah, kind of an interesting... I don't get what the vocalist is doing. I think the vocalist is a woman, it looks like from the photo on Wikipedia.
Well, yeah, when she spoke at the end, that seemed pretty likely that she was a woman as well.
Yeah, okay, Vanessa Briscoe-Hay.
Right, but, she was squawking as though she was either the lead singer of the German krautrock band Can, or maybe, who's the other one I'm thinking of? Maybe the vocalist for John Zorn's Naked City band. John Zorn, the jazz experimental saxophonist and writer, composer, had a kind of weird postmodern, wonderful kind of jazz combo called Naked City back in the 90s. And their lead singer basically sounded like the Tasmanian Devil. And that's what this sounded like, too. Although there were notes of Eric Cartman from South Park throughout the vocal performance, too. Hey, Stephen Marvin, have an appetizer. It's supposed to make you more hungry. I don't think those were the lyrics, though.
No.
I thought it was pretty good. It seemed a little bit more, I don't know, a little more punky, I guess, than some versions of this that we've heard, and less surfy, because so many of them have been surf rock versions of the theme. Mm-hmm. So many of the rock versions, the guitar, bass, drums versions of the theme that we've heard.
Yeah. Batman. I'm listening to it again here. Yeah.
Batman!
I haven't heard any of their other stuff. I don't know if she always sang like that or it was just their approach to this particular song.
I don't know. It feels kind of like a thing to me. So maybe that's her signature, but very interesting choice. Not the first time we've heard the word Batman sung in a very, very strange manner on this show.
Okay, well, later in the show, we're going to answer the rest of our previously posed Bat questions, which you're still welcome to send your answers to us. But first, let's talk about Batman 66 issue 9, dated May 2014.
Ooh.
Yeah, that's a while ago now.
Yeah, more than 8 years ago, if May usually means February or March when it comes to actually appearing on the newsstand, if such a thing exists anymore, or if comic books even appear on newsstands anymore. Sorry about the dog, by the way, folks. We have a lot of trouble. When Tim and I were kids, we used to say that our dog Tippy must have heard Russian tanks rolling up the driveway, the way she barked so strenuously when she'd see traffic or just people walking dogs going by. Our dog seemed to find bicycles just absolutely unmanageably horrifying because they just start going off, and it's like, oh no, Rich and Patty are riding their bicycles down the hill. So Tim could always turn off my side of the recording when he's mixing this, but you can hear a lot of woofing in the background. That's why. That's Franklin, ladies and gentlemen, not making his radio debut, unfortunately.
Okay, so the cover story this time is Zelda's Great Escape, and the cover shows. I find this illustration a little confusing. So we got Batman and Robin buried up to their necks with multicolored scorpions running around, or each scorpion's a completely different color. They look like there might be rubber scorpions.
Yeah, like the plastic kind you get in a bag of 100 at the dime store.
And then we've got in the foreground somebody's wearing cowboy boots with S on the back. I think maybe that was supposed to be Shame. So as we mentioned the last time we talked about this series a few episodes ago, issue 8 had a Shame story which referred to this Zelda story as having happened before the Shame story. And so apparently there was a delay on maybe the art on this story, but the other one was done, so they switched them.
Yeah, I'm absolutely sure this is supposed to be Shame.
Yeah, that makes sense. But then we've got this noose hanging down, rope tied in as a noose, and then Zelda is hanging on to it, but the proportions the rope seems way too big compared to her. You know what I mean? Well,
I think it looks to me like it's supposed to be a kind of stripper pole, because she's doing stripper pole dancing.
Okay.
The way she's holding on to it, it's sort of like, the big noose is meant to be a big prop. Like, I don't know, one of Bill Finger's big props.
I guess. Just the relative sizes, it makes it look like there's a Zelda action figure hanging onto the rope.
Well, and it's hard to know what it might be hanging from unless giant Shane, unless Shane is not just, foreground. In the foreground, he's also like, 20 feet tall and holding up this noose and making it dangle. What bugs me about the cover is, all praise to Mike and Laura Allred. I love this cover. I love the art, the line work itself. But Batman and Robin are so close together that they must be decapitated. We're seeing just their heads poking out of the sand, and there's no way they could be that close to each other and, not have their shoulders melding into each other in some kind of, fourth dimensional, synergy. I don't know.
Yeah, I guess that's the problem with having those Shame boots there, because it limits the space that you can fit Batman and Robin into.
That's right. Of course, Batman could have been in the foreground and Robin could have been in the back a little bit, and they would have fit just fine. But then the rope would probably look even stranger, and it would look as though it was hanging directly over Robin's head while simultaneously being behind him, because Zelda is foreshortened. She's smaller as well because of the distance perspective. Yes, a messy cover. Interesting framing between the shins of shame. Shins of shame. Yeah. Well, I've actually seen Shane a few times, so it's hard for me to say the right name when we're talking about shame. We'll just call him Cliff Robertson. That'll be easier.
So Zelda's Great Escape is written by Jeff Parker, art by Craig Rousseau. And it starts out with, indeed, that scene of Batman and Robin buried up to their necks in sand, but farther away from each other.
Yes.
And a bunch of scorpions that are all the same color now, they're all gray, are approaching them. And then we jump back to, the events leading up to the Scorpions.
That seemed kind of interesting to me. I wonder what the Batman show would have been like if they'd ever begun an episode with the trap and then, done a flashback to how they got there. It's fooling around with the plotting of the story, how the story gets represented in a way that the show probably would never have done in a million years.
No, never did. I'm sure. Yeah, we never jump around in time on Batman.
No, it wouldn't be linear. It wouldn't be linear enough for the kids, I suppose, if it were done this way. It's perfectly appropriate for a comic story, and it gives Desmond Doomsday something different to say.
Yeah, that's true.
What a predicament for the Caped Crusaders, sunk in the stand, surrounded by scorpions. Nice alliteration there, Jeff. Who could have put our heroes in this poisonous peril? And then we find out who indeed, says the next page, 2 days before at Gotham City Music Hall.
Now, I had a number of complaints about this story.
Okay.
And they weren't of the Batman never calls Robin Boy Wonder variety. Like, hey, that's not like the show type of complaint. Just some things that I thought, even in the context of Batman 66, didn't seem believable. As in, like, choices people made and so forth.
Shall we run through the plot really, really quickly? Like, the 30-second version of the plot?
Well, I think I'll be doing that as I go through my complaints.
Okay, cool. So let me have him. Let me have them. The ranting morning DJ of the Batman 66 crowd is speaking.
So first of all, in the actual Zelda episode from 66, never mind who's on the marquee, the real crook is Aval Ekdal. I mean, Zelda does put Aunt Harriet in the pit of fire death trap, and she does go to jail. But in this, she seems much less reluctant to be a bad guy.
Not reluctant at all, I would say. In fact, quite enthusiastic.
Right. Yeah, just the characterization is different, or her motivation is much different. Well, kind of. So, I mean, we do have the idea of using Batman and Robin to find ways to escape from traps that she can use in her act. But, of course, on the show, Aval Ekdal was happy to have Batman and Robin die in the process.
And Zelda seems perfectly happy to let them die, more or less by accident on purpose in this story, too. Zelda herself.
Yeah. So after we have that opening scene with the Scorpions and we jump back 2 days, and we see Bruce and Dick are at a show with dates, performance by, quote, the Great Griselda, and we eventually find out that they suspected that it was actually Zelda the Great. And she wanted them to suspect that. So Dick's date, Haley, volunteers to be an assistant in Griselda's escape trick. But as far as we can tell, Haley just goes up on stage and stands there while Zelda does the escape. But then Haley ends up kind of taking Zelda's side, and Batman and Robin appear, and she doesn't want them to be hurt, but she's still kind of supporting Zelda. She doesn't seem put off by Zelda at all. She's kind of interested in Zelda, which just didn't quite make sense to me.
Well, Zelda makes a pretty spectacular escape. It looks as though from the top of page 4 that Haley is there to check out the equipment. She says everything is real and solid, Miss Griselda. She's, assuring she's there to assure the audience that everything that we're seeing up here, the fire, the big slabs of iron with the spikes sticking out of them, everything is real and could actually hurt somebody before she does her escape.
Yeah, I guess I missed that because all we get is a close-up of Haley. We don't see her actually checking anything.
Right. So, yeah, my impression was that she's just impressed by, this, woman who can do these amazing feats that are usually done by a man. I also wonder why they look so similar to each other. Maybe it's just because Craig Rousseau, doesn't draw women's faces very differently from each other. But yeah, I don't know. I mean, I was a little surprised, certainly, that Haley, goes to the dark side of the Force so quickly. But nevertheless, this is, kind of an exciting thing that Zelda is doing.
Mm-hmm. But then, so Dick and Bruce change to Batman and Robin during the show and approach her during the show as if she's committing a crime there on stage, which, as far as we can tell, she's not. The only reference to her doing anything that might be a crime is that Batman says that this trap was one that they themselves had to escape from early, some, what does he say, weeks ago. So maybe he wants to arrest her for superhero endangerment?
Well, I mean, it must be illegal to trap anybody and set them up in some kind of death trap, right? It's certainly not above the board, kind of social communication.
But why approach her during the show? Why not wait till after the show?
Well, yeah, civic responsibility Batman would never, start a riot accidentally by attacking a bad guy right in front of everyone, unless the said bad guy did something illegal right there or endangered someone right there on the stage.
Right. Yeah. If Haley went up on stage and ended up dead, it would make sense.
Right. Or even threatened, with kidnapping or gunpoint or whatever. And I think, is it Dick or Robin a little while later who says that Haley's been kidnapped, but in fact she goes off with Zelda quite willingly up that shimmying up the rope ladder, or just the rope, I guess.
Yeah, and then quite a bit later she said, "Oh yeah, I abandoned my date."
Yes. Robin points up he's got a leg lock around the neck of one of the goons and points up and says, "Holy hostage, look, Batman." But Haley's got a big smile on her face, is enjoying climbing up the rope. Oh boy, what an exit. She doesn't look like a hostage to me. Yeah, so I completely agree with everything you're saying so far.
Sawate. My name is Stella, and I am the host of Batgirl to Oracle, the Barbara Gordon podcast. Batgirl to Oracle is a podcast dedicated to Barbara Gordon, the first woman to hold the mantle of Batgirl for an extended period of time, roughly 1967 to 1988. The goal of Batgirl to Oracle is to examine the character's history from her first appearance as Batgirl and continuing through her tenure as Oracle. Each episode looks at a vintage issue of Detective Comics or Batman, as well as other books like Justice League and Freedom Fighters, and modern issues of Batgirl and Birds of Prey. I also keep track of news involving Batgirl and other members of the Bat family, and I have a revolving series of segments like Babs in the Tube, which highlights appearances of Babs in TV and film, Shipper Spotlight, which looks at a variety of comic and pop culture couples, gives their history, and determines whether they are hot or not, Reading with Stella, which could be described as an audio drama, or just me reading a book that relates to Babs or doesn't, and of course, the mainstay literature recommendation. I have been blessed to interview writers Scott Beatty and Chuck Dixon on their Batgirl Year 1 work, Brian Q. Miller on his Batgirl run, Dwayne Swarzinski and Christy Marks on their separate Birds of Prey work, and the creators and actors of the Batgirl Spoiled, the web series. I hope to interview more creators and actors in the future. My goal, most importantly, is to make a fun, entertaining, and thoughtful show that people enjoy and from which they learn. Find the show online at thebatmanuniverse.net and iTunes, and follow the show on Facebook and Twitter at Batgirl to Oracle. Thank you, and fly on, Babs lovers.
Edward and Alphonse Elric, as a result of attempting the forbidden act of resurrecting their mother with alchemy, have paid the price. Edward lost an arm and a leg. Alphonse lost his whole body, his soul now attached to a suit of armor. Together they search for a way to make their bodies complete again and uncover a deadly plot by their country's military rulers. That's the concept of Hiromu Arakawa's Fullmetal Alchemist, one of the best manga ever made. Tim and Patrick are rereading Arakawa's masterwork in search of interesting sound effects, translation errors, goofy humor, and, oh yeah, a great story. The podcast is The Law of Equivalent Exchange, a chapter-by-chapter look at the manga Fullmetal Alchemist. New episodes every other Monday, wherever podcasts are found. What are you willing to exchange? So Zelda knocks out the duo and takes them to the desert in Arizona, along with her henchman and Haley, and puts them in the scorpion trap and several other traps as just tests to see how they escape so that she can use it in her act. And yeah, Batman uses this, what was it, some like native people's...
Yes, it's a kume throat singing, a skill particular, this is a quote, a skill particular to the nomadic Tuvan people of southern Siberia. I should have looked that up. Let me look that up and see if this is a people who actually exists or if it was made up by Parker.
But he uses that sound to make the scorpions go away, and she's like, that's not going to work for me. I can't do that. So dig them up and let's do something else. So I see that as when they're buried, they're also tied up.
Mm-hmm. Oh, by the way, Tuvan throat singing is absolutely legitimate. I knew there was such a thing as throat singing in some cultures, but yes, they are, people who Tuvans live in Tuva, Mongolia, and Siberia. So Parker had done his research. This is real.
By the way, we need a name for this, in the vein of civic responsibility Batman or impish humor Batman. We need a name for the Batman who like knows everything about everything in the world, like any obscure tribes, whatever, he knows about it.
I think Encyclopedia Brown is a good model here. So maybe we could just call him Encyclopedia Bat or Encyclopedia Batman.
Yeah, Encyclopedia Batman. That sounds good. Okay.
I hope somebody out there, one of our two listeners, has read an Encyclopedia Brown book in his or her childhood, because that was great stuff. Mysteries that you had to look in the back for the answer. Look in the back of the book. So Batman and Robin are too close together again here, by the way. Their heads are right next to each other as the Scorpions are coming toward them, playing No One Like You with their amps turned up to 11.
There's no one like you. Yeah, I mean, they were far apart, like in the opening scene, but yeah, they're shifting around within the sand.
Mm-hmm. While Haley, who clearly knows the Batman and Robin don't want to be, they're like non-consensually being buried up to their necks, is sitting there sipping lemonade through a straw with Zelda under an umbrella. Maybe she was a supervillain already. Maybe she'd been groomed by Zelda without our knowledge before the story began.
Okay, so yeah, Batman and Robin are tied up, like I said. So, but still, I kind of felt like they would make some kind of attempt to escape, like between death traps.
Oh yeah.
And they're just kind of being led around. Although I feel like the same thing happened on the show sometimes, where it's like, how did they let themselves get put into this death trap? It's like they willingly got into it. I was looking back at the Archer episode because I remembered that being the case with Archer, with the death trap there. Although it was presented as Archer is challenging Batman to a duel. Although I don't know what kind of duel involves tying up your opponent. Not a fair fight.
A Semplian duel.
But Batman and Robin just kind of let it happen.
Yeah. Well, Batman did have an out to the death part of the death trap through the throat singing. But he, seems to have no out for, escaping from the sand. But I'm absolutely sure that this would have been a two-part solution if this had been an episode of the show. Not only would Batman have, figured out, throat singing would cause vibrations that would confuse the Scorpions, or maybe, playing classical music would confuse the real Scorpions. Klaus Meany would be, what is this crap?
Well, or they did perform with an orchestra at one point, but anyway.
Well, that's true. With Winds of Change from when the Berlin Wall fell down. But anyway, back to real cartoon scorpions or real comic book scorpions. He would have had a way to escape from the trap itself as well. I'm just sure of that. Except for the fact that Zelda is still, and her men and Haley are still watching. They didn't go away to do something else the way villains always do on the show. It's like, let's set up a death trap that has like a million things that could go wrong and then just leave. Like we never talked about that as, being slightly unrealistic before.
No, of course not. But yeah, so I'm thinking about the quicksand cake in the John Aston Riddler where they had like the rockets. Now, in this case, with sand, that might be a good way to crush your body, but have the rockets push up and your torso stays where it is. That doesn't sound very good.
That's losing your head.
Yeah, there. You would think there must be some way, like he would have something in his belt that would help him to like twist around and like gradually come out of the sand like a corkscrew or something. I don't know.
Right, or maybe the throat singing would cause the sand to vibrate and loosen so that they could escape.
Sure,
why not?
That sounds plausible for the show.
Yeah, absolutely. There's a cause and an effect, even if the cause and effect are not logically connected in any way.
Yeah, I mean, there were plenty of death traps like that.
Of course. But they do escape from the ropes when they're tied up, when Batman and Robin are tied up together and held over the pit of snakes.
Yeah.
And the element of sound that Zelda seems to care about so much. Also, she has this interesting little bit about theatricality where Zelda is, making this as theatrical as possible, and Haley is impressed by that. I'm not quite sure what to do with it, but it's kind of an interesting little, character add-on for Zelda.
But yeah, I mean, Zelda spends a page plus kind of just chatting with Haley and talking about the road less traveled and all this. And while their backs are turned, Batman and Robin escape, and Zelda misses seeing how they escaped. But yeah, this whole road less traveled thing, I felt like that ended up being kind of the point of the story. As Haley runs off into the desert, even though there might not be any other human beings for miles around, it didn't seem like a very smart move on her part.
Right. Well, to be fair, I get the impression from how indistinct the backgrounds are in this part of the story that they're basically on one of the Star Trek sets, the original series, where, there's some landscape and then there's, like pink lights covering up the fact that there's nothing but a screen as the backdrop. So, she runs. She doesn't really have very far to go before she, finds the restroom at the studio.
Yeah, well, we can't see the camera crew that's on our side of the.
Yeah, so the artist's drawing board where Craig Rousseau is furiously sketching this.
Right. And Jeff Parker standing there saying, "Okay, draw it this way."
Yes, I'd like a slightly higher angle on Haley there. So there's a fight scene. There's a moment where Batman strangles Robin by tugging on his cape as he's falling into the snake pit. But Robin can still talk. He can still utter a holy slithering snakes.
Yeah, his collar seems awfully loose for the fact that Batman's hanging onto his cape.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking. I can't imagine that they could get away with Batman holding onto Robin's cape over a snake pit on the show, since every mother would be saying, "Goodness gracious, will little Timmy try this?" Sorry, Tim. Will little Bobby try this? And will he jump off the garage and have little Stevie grab onto his cape and the towel wrapped around his neck and choke him to death?
Or the towel comes untied and.
Yes, and, little Bobby falls to his death.
Or at least breaks his leg.
Another victim of the Batman show, yeah. So, there are a lot of problems with this story. I do sort of like the way that Zelda has been I guess you could say rather than rehabilitated, she's been dehabilitated as a villain. So, now she's got kind of a shtick. She's theatrical. She's coming up with death traps for Batman and Robin in order to come up with death-defying escape scenes that she can make into a spectacle in her show. Her goons look like circus strongmen, completely, their heads completely shaven and the big curly mustaches and the kind of leotards they're wearing, or unitards. So all that stuff is kind of interesting insofar as it gives Zelda more of an identity than just the kind of weepy, I'm not really sure I want to do this, character we got, who's basically being Pygmalioned, I suppose, or Svengali'd by her, quasi-accomplice, who's more like her boss. So there's that to the, there's that, possible improvement, like making Zelda into a real villain with a real shtick.
But it's odd that she doesn't seem interested in theft of anything. Her only crime is forcing Batman and Robin to test out death traps. Right.
Well, maybe that's where the theatricality thing comes in. One of the content of most of her kind of quasi-philosophical remarks to Haley is, you got to do your own thing and you got to make it fabulous. So theatricality, making the death trap more interesting by adding snakes, so there's sound added to the mix. She's excited about doing things like that. It seems very campy, frankly. She's trying to create the big show, and the most spectacular, most kind of excessive way of presenting these escape acts. So, maybe her goal is to be campier. She's a criminal who's using her instincts as an anti-crime fighter to become a better performer. I don't know, just a thought.
And she also apparently now has a supervillain costume. She had no costume. We never even saw a performance costume on the show that I can recall.
Right? Yeah, I don't
believe
believe
kind of
we did.
in normal clothes. But yeah, here she's got this thing with the fur around the collar, and although I don't know why she'd wear that in the desert, but in Arizona.
Well, I'm sure if Joker were in Arizona, he'd still wear his 3-piece suit.
Sure. That's how you can tell it's her costume, because she wears it regardless of the conditions.
Right, and that's also how you can tell that she's Zelda instead of Haley in this story. And Haley's wearing a hairband like Gwen Stacy from Spider-Man, so that helps identify her as well.
Well, and you can tell the difference in age, I think, by looking at them, even if they look like two different ages of the same person.
I suppose, although the age is primarily signified by the fact that Haley's wearing a miniskirt. I'm not sure their faces look that much different. But, yeah, I guess maybe the cheekbones are a little different.
Yeah,
but anyway.
Like relative size.
What do you think of Rousseau's art in the story?
Well, it's not bad. It gets a little kind of, I don't know, sketchy, or...
I don't have anything against manga at all, but it does seem kind of manga-y to me at times. Like when Robin is really far away, sometimes his nose disappears.
Yeah, I mean, we've talked about
kind of a manga thing.
Them having the rights to use the images of the actors. They don't even look like Adam West and Burt Ward.
Not really, no.
And I know they have the rights to them.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, they certainly don't have the rights to Anne Baxter, or else, Rousseau's not bothering to make Zelda look like Anne Baxter here.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think it's okay. The layouts are very dynamic. The fight scene is kind of fun. I do love that, whoever's designing the lettering here, and I don't remember who the official letterer is. Let me take a look. Wes Abbott. He and all the other letterers we've seen, I believe, so far are using what look like, templates based on exactly some of the fight words that we see on the show. Like POW on the next to last page here is, totally a lift from one of the show's superimpositions or intertitles. But I love Exunt on the last page as a fight word because, that's the theatrical, word, either French or Latin. I think probably it's taken from French in this case. But yeah, it just means everybody leaves the stage. It's at the end of a scene in a script. Exeunt means everybody's off. So I guess that would have to be the last punch.
Yeah, makes sense. So then the backup story, which you might remember in our previous comic episode, Paul's reading the bound edition, the trade paperback, and the stories are in a different order there. So he had read this story, The Butler Did It, but it wasn't in issue 8. It was in issue 9.
Yeah, I didn't even think to ask Tim, were any stories moved?
Well, I mean, I had no thought of them shuffling the stories in the trade, and I don't think I even knew you were reading the trade, or I'd forgotten. So
yeah. Because when we first started doing issues of Batman 66, I was reading it online through Comixology. But then I got the trade set.
Okay. So this story is written by Tom Peyer. Of course, we had him on the show a while back.
Yes, our old friend from Wrong Earth. The Ahoy Comics series, or multiple series.
And pencils by Chris Sprouse. And this is a story bringing back cousin Egbert, Alfred's cousin Egbert, from the Impractical Joker, or more specifically, Part 2, The Joker's Provokers, that cousin Egbert appears in.
Right.
And this story kind of vaguely refers to that and whatever crime he committed, which was what he helped the Joker, didn't he?
Yes, I guess he did. Yes, because I found myself wondering and not being able to remember exactly whether this is in character for Egbert completely become basically a bad guy or a cat burglar almost.
Well, I think the only reference in the show was that when Alfred was playing Egbert, Joker said something to him about the help that he had gotten from the Night Watchman, and remember Alfred kind of whispered to himself, Iggy's helping the Joker.
Who goes there? I mean, here.
Oh, good evening, friend. You were sleeping so soundly, I hope not to disturb you.
How did you get in here? See that notice? We got a rule around here.
I know, but you were so courteous to me the other evening, near the storage reservoir.
Courteous? I threw you out.
The old fellow seems a bit befuddled. Oh, this might help you recollect. Add it to the $5 I gave you last time.
Right.
But we never saw Egbert getting arrested or anything.
Right. Yes, that's true.
So in this story, he's getting out of jail, or he's coming out of the Wayne Foundation halfway house for the halfway corrupt with Bruce.
That's a great title for a name for this institution.
As if it were from the pen of Semple himself.
Exactly. I think, Peyer's really on fire.
And Bruce gives him a whole $20, and then Alfred comes to pick up Egbert, and Egbert rides with him for a while, and then when he gets out at the flop house, he hits Alfred over the head with his briefcase, knocks him out, and takes over as the Wayne Butler. And of course, Bruce and Dick and Aunt Harriet don't realize it at first, but they notice Alfred's acting pretty strange. With Iggy impersonating Alfred, he answers the bat phone. And when he hears Gordon asking for Batman, he says, "It's a wrong number, mate."
Quit dialing with your thumbs. Shove off. Yes, that's kind of great. So, we've got some turnabout being fair play or unfair play or foul play here, in that Alfred impersonated Egbert, and now Egbert is impersonating Alfred. He's turning it around from the Joker's Provokers.
And it's a lot easier to do it in a comic because you don't need to use split screen or anything.
Absolutely. It's like, wow, I can just draw him twice.
And we should start singing Identical Cousins, I think.
Indeed. Speaking of identical cousins, I've just turned to maybe page 5 of the story where Commissioner Gordon shows up for the first time. Doesn't he look exactly like Alfred? Like Sprouse draws Alfred, except no mustache? Maybe Egbert is also impersonating Commissioner Gordon.
Pretty close. I mean, Alfred really looks like Alan Napier. Well, and so does Egbert.
That's true.
They must have the rights to Alan Napier, but not to Neil Hamilton. So, but yeah, he does, with the glasses on, he does end up looking a little bit like Alan Napier.
Yes, the white hair, all of that. But Alfred and Egbert both have white eyebrows. Their hair is a little, pointier on the sides. So there are definite differences here. Mm-hmm. But it just kind of caught me by surprise.
So, of course, eventually Batman and Robin, or Bruce and Dick, figure out what's going on. But Batman's plan is to not just confront him, because they need to get him to admit to what he did with Alfred. Mm-hmm. So this was my favorite part of the story, that we see a bat climb of the outside of Wayne Manor.
And who pushes his or her head out of the window to meet them?
Right, yeah, the window cameo by Aunt Harriet.
Nice. Yep.
And Robin saying, "Holy work from home." I was almost expecting him to say "Holy Zoom meeting," but
yeah, this is pre-pandemic comics.
Yeah.
So
well, pre a lot of things.
That's for sure. Yes,
it's 1966. Zoom, what's that?
Yeah, work from home wasn't really a thing either. I don't think in '66.
Holy remote work.
Yes, unless you'd ordered, some pyramid scheme information from the back of a comic book and were, licking envelopes to get people to send you money at your kitchen table. Yeah. Anyway.
So they act as if he's Alfred and say they need his help with fighting crime, and take him with them. He's in this like nightshirt and nightcap, and they give him a domino mask to wear and take him to the top of the skyscraper, make him climb the stairs, and then they say, "Whoops, this is the wrong building," as Egbert nearly steps off the edge of the building, and Batman's just holding onto his wrist. And then Batman says, "Yeah, whoops, wrong building. We need to go over there across the street to the other building, and you're athletic, right? You could just put this rope ladder across the street."
Yes, Robin says, "Nonsense, Alfred. You've accomplished this feat dozens of times." Which I kind of doubt, actually. I don't think Batman and Robin of '66 fame would ever allow Alfred to endanger himself to that degree.
No, or anyone, really. I mean, they end up with him like out over the street halfway across the rope ladder bridge, and he admits then that he's not Alfred. Yeah,
basically they're extorting a confession out of him.
Yeah. I mean, the only time Alfred did anything close to this was the bat climb that he did in the Joker story, right, when he was dressed as Batman. Mm-hmm. We could see then he wasn't particularly athletic.
No, and his mustache covered up a lot less well than even Cesar Romero's mustache.
So, yeah, I felt like Batman might be on the hook for reckless endangerment here, but it was an okay story.
Yeah, I mean, it's a tightly constructed story. I like the turnabout of Alfred being impersonated by Egbert instead of the other way around. It seems to take up some things about the show that were just like clues kind of, or possibilities just kind of brought up and thrown away in the episode. That is, Egbert taking this bribe. Tom has just picked up that cue and run with it, which is kind of great. The other thing that I couldn't help but notice about the story is that we've got basically the wrong Earth version of Alfred here, which we don't get to see in the Wrong Earth, because there is no Alfred stand-in as far as I can recall from any of the series that we've read and discussed on the show. But we do get to have Alfred's evil twin here, which is kind of great. You can see Peyer, kind of doing his run up for Wrong Earth here, perhaps experimenting with what it would be like for, there to be a kind of, mirror episode of Batman 66. Where Spock has a goatee. Have you ever seen the South Park episode where they do a mirror on us and all the kids have goatees on the other side? That's how they can tell which ones are the evil Cartman. Of course, the evil Cartman, the regular Cartman is actually the evil Cartman. So you'd think that, evil Cartman would actually be good.
Yeah.
Anyway, so, Alfred's already got a mustache here, so no goatee this time around.
Yeah.
Welcome to the Superman Fan Podcast. My name is Billy Hogan, and I will be your host. Before we begin our journey through the time barrier, please ensure that your red indestructible capes are securely fastened around your necks, so that we may all travel safely into the past to explore the Silver Age adventures of the Man of Steel in the pages of Action Comics, Superman, Superman's pal Jimmy Olsen, Superman's girlfriend Lois Lane, and World's Finest Comics. After we return from our journey, I encourage you to go to the website, thesupermanfanpodcast.blogspot.com. I look forward to have you join me each week to explore the Silver Age adventures of the Man of Steel.
Coming up, more Bat audio of Adam West on the Merv Griffin Show. We answer some of our own Bat questions, and we read your mail in the Bat inbox. This show is listener-supported through Patreon. Support us for $2 a month and get access to outtakes from every To the Bat Polls episode, trivia quizzes on mid to late 20th century entertainment, and the right to vote on future Bat Polls topics. For $4 a month, you also get the right to have an ad for your own project on the show once a month, and hours of exclusive podcasts, including our walk through the early years of The Amazing Spider-Man. So go to patreon.com/deconcomics and select the level of your monthly donation. Thanks for listening and thanks for your support.
The show's doing well still, isn't it, Adam?
Well, I think it's, realistically speaking, I think it's leveled off because the ratings, at first were extraordinary.
Yes.
And I think it's comfortable now.
At
least we're back for next season, Merv.
Yeah, with a lot of changes, I hear.
Did they? To me?
No. No, are they adding a Batgirl?
Yes, they are. Yvonne Craig, and she's very pretty and a really fine actress and very buoyant, and I think she'll be a great additive to the show.
What about Batboy?
Yeah, that's what I want.
Wonder Boy.
No.
Wonder Fella. What is it?
No.
Wonder Robin.
As my
Robin Redbreast.
My Robin?
You're Robin.
He'll be back.
Oh, really, Adam?
I don't know. I haven't been out there for a while. I've been traveling. I've been abroad, and I ran away to join the circus for 10 days in Detroit. And so I really don't know what's going on in the
You have been
Batcave.
playing out with the circuses, huh?
Yes.
How'd it go?
It was a real circus.
Yeah?
Merv, it was, to me, it was an experience I'll never forget because those people are something else. They're warm, they're loyal. The work that they do is incomprehensible. I think television is tough. For example, shooting our show. But those circus people, it's 85, for example, in the Coliseum in Detroit.
And some of the smells are...
Abominable.
Yeah.
Abominable.
Yeah?
Yes, but they do 2 and 3 shows a day, and then they move on to another city.
Well, what do you do in the circus?
Well, not too much. I wave a lot. And I have a thing in which some heinous villains rob a safe of the entire circus payroll, and Batman comes in on time and saves the money, and then I have a stage fight with 4 acrobats. Am I moving my head too fast?
No.
Feels like it to me. And
You're not a little loaded, are you, Batman? I don't mean to come right out and hit you with that.
You know, I have a chemistry set in the Batcave.
Aha. Well, you better leave that stuff alone.
Okay, so yeah, a while back we posed some bat questions to our audience, and sometimes we got answers and sometimes we didn't.
Not even the possibility of a dope prize drew anybody to the, no moths came to the flame. But that's all right. Maybe we should come up with a more gripping dope prize possibility in the near future.
Well, I don't know. I wonder if the questions were a little too hard. I mean, the first one here, I had trouble coming up with something I was really excited about. Create your own original piece of bat equipment. What was missing from the dynamic duo's arsenal?
Yeah.
All I came up with was bat stain remover. I don't think there was ever such a thing on the show. It would have come in handy in Pop Goes the Joker when Batman got paint on his chest.
That's true, and it might have helped him at least begin to clean up his pink cowl. Although, I doubt the stain remover would have worked on something other than cloth.
Does it remove radioactivity?
Yeah, exactly. Bat shout. That's what we need. You get ring around the T-shirt collar out of his costume.
Or bat Febreze.
To freshen up his bat sweat smell. I like Bat Shout. It sounds a little bit like, the slightly more or slightly less family friendly version of Bat Guano that we used to talk about all the crud that, was produced by both licensed and unlicensed toy producers in 1966 to cash in on Batman. Bat Shout, yes, exactly. So what I did to try to answer this question was think back to the Bat devices that I enjoyed the most when we were young. So one of the things I always thought was really cool was Bat Sleep and Bat Wake. That you could, knock somebody out and then, take them to your secret, hideaway and wake them up, and now all I can think of is date rape. It's, like a date rape drug.
Yeah, those segments get kind of uncomfortable, like in the Bookworm with Bookworm's Mall or with Pauline.
With Barbara Gordon.
In the Riddler, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't think Batman's going to take advantage of Neil Hamilton, but, who knows? Or the Penguin. But when I was 9 or so, I thought, Bat Sleep was the coolest. What a great idea. And I'm pretty sure that we borrowed, playing Batman and Robin, either like in our Pancake Day parade costumes, Batman and Superman, or with the action figures. I think, Bat Sleep was something I probably introduced into the action figure play at some point. And then also bat tracers, any way of tracing something, like radiation spray, and using a Geiger, basically a glorified Geiger counter to chase down someone who had been, sprayed with radioactivity. It's like, why don't they just go after the guy with the huge boils on his back from, the radioactive material we sprayed onto him? They wouldn't even need a Geiger counter then.
Well, they could get Peter Parker to get some spider tracers and change the shape into bat tracers, but Batman would need his bat sense to track the tracers. My
batty sense is tingling. Anyone call for a web swinger or a rope swinger? Let's see. So the ejector seat. I love the ejector seat. I remember enjoying that and really kind of looking forward to seeing, an episode where I knew the ejector seat was going to be used. One thing that struck me that could be useful that I never really wished for as a kid, but now a bat genetic analyzer would be, really useful. They could use fingerprints or, pieces of hair and, strands of hair and find bad guys in the database. The bat speech synthesizer, but something other than a typewriter, something that moved a little faster instead of the stuttering that we get out of their synthesizer on the show when Alfred is operating it. What about a bat weather changer? That could come in handy, where you somehow are able to localize a rainstorm or something, in order to confuse your enemy or call up some fog that isn't in Londinium, for example. The only other ones I could come up with were a bat force field. And I don't think we ever saw a bat, like an invisible bat force field on the show, which certainly I think would have been more useful than the bat shield, which, let's face it, the bat shield covers up about, the area of a couple of cereal boxes. There's maybe 4 cereal boxes, like the bad shield I made out of 4 potato chip boxes once upon a time, and still apparently have. I think we found it when we found that board game back at Mom and Dad's. I'm so used to calling our parents Grandma and Grandpa for Noah's sake that I sometimes call them Grandma and Grandpa. The only other thing, this is something that would have appealed to my 8 or 9-year-old self, is bat energy pills, which now would be known as speed. However, I remember eating M&Ms as a kid and thinking, let's pretend this is a power pill. And I eat the power pill and it makes me stronger and faster and gives me lots of energy. Oh, boy.
Yeah, as kids, that sounds fine, but yeah.
Yeah, but once you find the real thing, you realize that, one day you wake up and think, I'm taking amphetamines. Wait a minute. This isn't a power pill at all.
But they taste like chocolate.
Yes, and they're so good, and they're pretty colors. All right, so we got one more question left. We want to just dispatch. Oh, okay.
Having talked about Harlan Ellison's treatment for the Two-Way Crimes of Two-Face, I said, if that had become the title of a 2-part episode, part 1, what would be the rhyming title for part 2? And I came up with 3 possibilities. I had to kind of look back at the story and see if that brought any ideas to mind. One was, thinking about in part 2, the pretend moon surface at that observatory. A one-way chase into false space. Not really in space, but...
Let me point out something weird about this title is usually the rhythm of these titles goes something like dun da dun da da. It's like 3 feet of iambic pentameter. No, well, maybe iambic. Like an iambic trimeter, perhaps. But the Two-Way Crimes of Two-Face has more syllables. So I tried it, as you did, clearly, to make the number of syllables match as well as I could, as well as making the second episode title rhyme with the first one. So, anyway.
Also, Batman wraps up a weird case. And how'd the coin get stuck in the first place?
Very nice. Yeah. Mine degenerate to that one, to something like that one pretty quickly. I've got like 9 or 10. I just started going. I went to town on it because it was so much fun to come up with them. Once I stopped caring about how well it described something in the episode, then everything became easy. My first one goes like this. Two-Face ends in disgrace. The crime lord falls in disgrace. A second one just with the same end point. The duo is forced about face. So that one might have, that sounds kind of Semplian to me.
Yeah.
Batman closes the big case. So, I was sure that you were probably going to go there too. And we both did. The villain learns his place. The villain learns his true place to try to fit the number of syllables. Then things started to get weird. Arsenic and old lace. But I think that's taken. They whack him with a stone vase, which I don't think actually happens in the episode. Batman prays to Pope Boniface. A little historical twist. Then just by Boardwalk and Park Place. Must have been playing Monopoly with Noah a lot when I wrote this. And the final one is stop stuffing Mars bars in your face. So yeah, we've moved very, very far away from this episode as I went on. I think your first one was probably my favorite. Could you read it again?
A one-way chase into false space.
That's great. It kind of encapsulates, almost summarizes the episode.
The other question, third and final question, who should have had a window cameo and what would they have said to the duo? First person that came to mind was Don Adams as Maxwell Smart.
Perfect.
And I wrote a whole little script here.
Oh, man.
Smart. Excuse me, have you seen any Chaos agents around here? Batman. Sorry, citizen. Robin and I haven't spotted any enemy agents, but we'll let you know if we do. Smart. Thank you. According to my research, there may be as many as 10,000 Chaos Agents in Gotham City. Can you believe it? 10,000. Robin, I find that kind of hard to believe. Smart, would you believe 5,000? Batman, I'm afraid not. Smart, how about a baker's dozen? Batman, well, we'll let you get back to your pursuit, Agent. Robin, you'll be in a lot of danger. Batman, you'll be risking your life for freedom and democracy. Smart, and loving it. Or author. Or Smart accidentally cuts the bat rope and the duo go plummeting to the street. And Smart says, sorry about that.
I could certainly see that. A few Chaos Agents died, and pretty close to that manner on the show. Wow, I can't compete with that. And in fact, I really can't, because I had jotted this question down on my typed out list of questions in such small handwriting that I didn't even remember that there was another question.
Okay, well, to be continued. Maybe we can get back to it next time.
Well, yeah, but let me just say that my ideas were Bob Hope and Johnny Carson, as who would both be great possible cameos on the show.
Sure.
So I'll work on a little dialogue. I won't be able to match up, or I can't compete with your Don Adams scripts. But perhaps the great Carsoni could make an appearance here.
Yeah, well, Carson makes sense because he. Right around the same time, he did a couple cameos on Get Smart.
Yes, that's right. That's right. My goodness.
And actually, come to think of it, I think Bob Hope did a cameo on Get Smart, too.
No kidding.
I'm trying to remember. I think it was in season 3. That's the last season I watched. It's been a little while ago. But he was like working in this little hotel.
Wow.
I believe.
Okay. Well, I'll do a little research on that. So they could have both been likely, not just plausible ones, but actually likely cameos. And Don Adams had a lot of friends in the comedy business back then. Although by the time he died, what's his name? The guy who played Mr. Bickley on Mork and Mindy.
Oh, Tom Poston.
Yeah, Tom Poston. I read this recently. I will have to look up what the source was. But Don Adams was so unpopular with his friends late in his life because he used to rip off their jokes, back in the 60s and 70s for his stand-up routines and such, that, the friends that he used to be really close with back in the day, when this writer and actor who wrote this story about Adams' late life called Tom Poston to tell him that Don Adams had died because they had been close. There was silence on the other line, and Poston then said, "Don't care," and hung up.
Wow.
So friends that Don Adams had in the comedy business were not really his friends, as his life wound down.
Mm-hmm. At first, I was thinking that Don Adams would never have been on as Smart because it was a different network. But then I remembered that Colonel Klink was on Batman, and he was on a different network.
Right.
Hogan's Heroes was on CBS.
Mm-hmm.
And Smart at the time was on NBC. The final season of Smart was on CBS, but
right. Mm-hmm.
But never on ABC.
Yes.
Well, unless you count the 1989 TV movie Get Smart Again, which was on ABC, Wikipedia points out that ABC turned down the original pilot for Smart in the 60s. Bat Inbox this time is really quick. This is from the comments on our own blog post of the Reuben Watt episode, in which we also talked about American Bandstand showing clips of Hi Diddle Riddle Smack in the Middle. And Steve Small commented, "In the American Bandstand clip of the pilot, there is a mistake I never noticed before. At one moment during the fight, Batman has the air breather in his mouth, that filter thing, because of the gas.
Yes, as they're fighting around the mastodon.
Right,
the mammoth.
Mm-hmm. Next moment it is gone. Next moment it's there again." And sure enough, since I was there, at the blog post, I just watched that American Bandstand video. And so, there's a point where Robin gets on this rolling cart and rolls it over towards the fight and jumps off of it into the fray. Then shortly after that, there's a shot of Batman, clearly Hubie Kearns, not Adam West, punching henchmen. And at that point, he doesn't have the air filter in his mouth. But then a moment later, when he jumps into the hole after the Riddler, he's got it again.
Okay.
So, yeah, good catch.
Definitely. Continuity is awfully hard to keep going when you've got, 15 people running around throwing fake punches at each other, I suppose.
Next time, we'll be talking about another script treatment that was never produced, The Joker Jury, written by Max Hodge, who wrote the first 2 Mr. Freeze stories. I've read the whole thing already, and because I wanted to find out if it was like similar to something else that got produced, but it's not. Definitely not.
So we've never, ever, ever discussed a script that wasn't at least revised into a script that was actually shot and broadcast.
Well, we have the Two-Face treatment by Harlan Ellison.
Right. Of course. But yeah, my initial thought was, is this a version of the Mad Hatter script? But Tim assured me that it isn't.
No,
so
there is a jury in it, but yeah, it's very different from the Mad Hatter story.
Got it. Well, looking forward to digging into this one.
Yeah. So we'll see you in 2 weeks at the same Bat RSS feed. Check the show notes to hear Pylon's version of the Batman theme in full. Thanks to David Maska, J.B. Anderton, and Chris Cavanaugh for the Adam West clip you heard in this episode. If you have any interesting Bat audio that we haven't used yet on the show, you'd like to make a donation to the show through PayPal, or you just want to drop us a line, the address is batpoles@deconstructingcomics.com. You can also comment on the thread for each episode at 66batman.com/forums or on our blog at tothebatpoles.libsyn.com. We're on Twitter at Decon Comics and on the Deconstructing Comics channel on YouTube. You can hear outtakes from this and every episode of To the Batpoles and vote for topics for future episodes by supporting us at patreon.com/deconcomics. You can also help us out by shopping via deconstructingcomics.com/Amazon, by sharing our episodes on your social media, and by subscribing to the show on Apple Podcasts or wherever you listen. And spread the word. Let all your friends who are Batman 66 fans know about the show. Next time, we discuss Max Hodge's unused treatment, The Joker Jury. Was it any good? Listen in 2 weeks and judge for yourself. We'll see you then. To the Batpoles is a production of deconstructingcomics.com.